How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be talking about a Game of the Year contender in my opinion, and that is going to be Dave the Diver. Just want to go ahead and say real quick that I'm going to try and be as vague as possible in regards to the story, but we are going to be talking about most of the general mechanics in the game and the things that you are going to be running into. So while I'd like to say that it's a little bit spoiler free, there is going to be gameplay going on in the background. So just a forewarning to any of those that might not want to see any of the gameplay at all. However, I am going to limit it just to the swimming and the fishing, so you won't see any of the storyline. All right, now just to get into it, Dave the Diver honestly is probably the best game that I have played in a long time. It has been a hot minute since I have felt this way about a game, and I feel like the community really just agrees. If you go look at the Steam reviews, there is so many people that are just absolutely raving over this game, and it is all just true. Everything anyone says about this game, all of the positive reviews, I don't think I have enough words to say how much I truly enjoyed this whole experience. Now, Dave the Diver has been in alpha for a little bit now, and they did just finally have the full release. It was developed and published by Rocket, which is a subsidiary of Nexon. And I know you might be confused on why I would even consider this type of game as Game of the Year, because normally you think like huge 3D worlds, AAA studio, generally there's a lot of combat, and just this like huge, larger than life type aspect like God of War or Elden Ring. And just looking quickly at Dave the Diver, you kind of see, you know, this smaller 2D fishing game that looks like cute and all, but how is that really going to compete with some of these ginormous Giga Chad type studios and games that have been coming out this year? But let me tell you that if it wasn't for the fact that I had to make this video, I probably would have made 3 or 4 or even 5 times the amount of hours in gameplay than I would have if I didn't have to finish the story so I could make this. I can genuinely say that Dave the Diver gives everything that you could ever want from a video game that was extremely wholesome, really fun. It was so enjoyable. The grind is just never ending, but it's such a comfortable, enjoyable process that it really doesn't feel like you're grinding at all. The game itself is so rewarding with all of the things that you do. Nothing is so difficult that you really want to just like smack the screen because you have to restart 5 times after a boss fight. But it's also not so easy that you're just like, well, I'm just kind of breezing through this whole thing. And on top of all of that, there is so much just like generic meme culture and video game culture in this game. It is so entertaining, and you could honestly play this game so much farther than just the story and still have a good time. And speaking of the story, the premise of Dave the Diver is there's this guy, his name's Cobra. He's one of your good friends. He calls you while you're just hanging out. You're retired from diving, basically. You haven't done it in a long time, but he wants you to come visit at this place called the Blue Hole. He said that he found this new area that is an ecological kind of just like masterpiece. It's this giant hole that is always changing every single time that you go into the water. So it could be different every single day and every single afternoon. You'll run into a bunch of different species of fish. You're gonna have to harvest those, which is the whole reason why Cobra's calling you out, is to help supply fish for this place called Bancho Sushi. Now, Bancho Sushi is basically one of the main aspects of the game. It's this restaurant ran by Bancho, and you are the one that is going to be providing ingredients for him and doing a lot of other things. And the whole point kind of is for you guys to run this restaurant, make money, have a good time. And through this process, you're going to meet a ton of friends. You are going to study the sea, and you're also going to be investigating this phenomena that is going on because there's a ton of earthquakes in the area, and it is impacting everyone, including some friends that are in the ocean. I don't want to go too in-depth on the story because I do feel like in a game like this, that is a huge aspect of it. So that is kind of like the brief overview. However, in regards to the mechanics, we are going to do a very in-depth kind of dive on exactly what kind of goes on in this game. So if you want to avoid any of the mechanic or feature spoilers, feel free to just skip to the end. Otherwise, let's just get into it. So like I said, you know, it's in the name, Dave's a diver, right? You're going to be diving and fishing, and while you're underwater, you're going to be having the ability to use a harpoon gun. You are going to have the ability to use weapons, and you also have melee weapons. Now, not all fish are going to be aggressive. A lot of them are just going to leave you alone. They'll run away when you actually try and harpoon them. You have to deal a certain amount of damage with either your harpoon gun or your weapon to basically be able to catch these fish. Now, you get varying quality of fish depending on if you catch it alive, if you catch it while it is dead. So you could shoot, say a clownfish, right? You can just shoot it. You kill it. You don't have to shoot it with a harpoon gun. But however, this is going to give you a lower quality ingredient, which is going to make it to where the dishes that you are making at the restaurant are actually less money. So you'd like to, stay on the side of using the harpoon gun. However, there's even a weapon called the net gun where you'll be able to shoot a net at fish. So you can catch them alive with no damage, and this is going to give you the highest quality. And through this whole process, you'll be exploring the blue hole. So you'll be going in several different depths, ranging from 0 meters all the way down to like 800 meters. It's kind of crazy. You'll go through different regions and different biomes as you swim around, basically. And you'll also run into a lot of different aggressive species, and this will range from lionfish to jellyfish. There's a whole slew of sharks that you'll run into, as well as some really fun boss fights. You'll also run into some friendly creatures that'll actually give you quests and give you items. So it is a very wide range of what you'll run into, and I feel like that is one of the most enjoyable parts of this game. It is, one, actually very, very true when it comes to what species you'll run into and where they're located, what they look like. You'll actually learn a lot about fish. If you're interested in fish, or you just have a general appreciation for the ocean, this is a fun game in that aspect. Now, like I said, there will be boss battles, so you'll have a wide range of enemies for these boss battles, and it'll either be story driven, like you're going to have to defeat this boss to move on to the next kind of story mission, the main story mission. And there's also some optional boss fights that you don't have to do, but if you'd like to, you can also do these boss fights. And they vary widely in regards to the mechanics that these bosses have. I have to say that there was never any boss fight that was absolutely ridiculously hard. There are a couple where, I got wiped, 2-3 times in the boss fights, but for the most part, they are very fair. It is very straightforward. They definitely help you out in telling you how to actually take on the boss, and it's very rewarding when you kill it. There's also a ton of different minigames. I don't want to get too in-depth on them because some of them, well, the majority of them do have relation to the main story, but there's a lot of characters that you'll run into in this game that are going to end up being your friends, and you'll communicate with them often. And occasionally, you'll actually get to play as these side characters, and generally it's only for a very small portion, but you'll get to play some really fun minigames when you are these side characters. And I have to say, it is one of the best side character experiences I've ever had. They gave these side characters so much depth and their own unique personalities that it was so enjoyable. I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of times I was smiling when I was playing this game. On top of the minigames, you will also have 2 extra locations that you're given access to as you play through the main story, and that is going to be a farm and a sea farm. So the farm, pretty straightforward. You're able to grow vegetables and things like that there. And the sea farm, you're able to actually unlock areas depending on the depth. So you'll have one for like 50 meters, you'll have one for 130 meters, and you'll have one for 800 meters. All the wide ranges, all the different ecosystems. And you'll have the ability to capture fish in the ocean, and when you catch these fish, there's a rare chance that you're able to get the eggs of these species. And through that, you're able to put them in these sea farms, where if you have 2 or more of the same species, they'll actually replicate. So you're able to actually get a ton of ingredients just passively. So if you don't want to spend a ton of time in the water catching a bunch of fish every single time you go down there, you actually have this passive resource that is able to, not exactly as fast as you would if you were actually capturing them in the ocean, but it's a very, very nice process if you want to do more exploring and not spend a lot of your time catching. Now, you'll probably be wondering how you're able to manage all of this, because it sounds like a lot, but it's really actually very simple. You'll have a phone, and it's funny, for some reason, they really focused on this aspect of like, oh, it's the future now, you can do everything on your phone. You're kind of like a boomer, and you don't understand how it all works, basically. But you'll have apps, and on these apps, you're able to access basically everything that you need to know. So if you ever have a question, you're always able to go to your phone, and it's going to give you the information that you're looking for. On these phones, you'll have a very wide range of apps, including mini games. You'll have things to check on your farm, on your restaurant, on your employees, on your weapons, on your equipment, and a ton of other really fun mini games that are kind of just like side progression that you get to work on if you want to. And then speaking about weapons, you'll have a pretty decent range of weapons for when you're in the underwater areas. And you'll have rifles, you'll have snipers, you get grenade launchers, you'll have shotguns, there's a tranquilizer dart gun. It is absolutely crazy the things that they kind of give you down there. And you'll also have a weapon like enhance system where you're able to apply elemental effects onto these weapons depending on the items that you actually harvest in the ocean. So it's a really fun kind of like resource sink that they use to basically upgrade the damage that you have for bosses or aggressive creatures basically. Another one of the most important apps is iDiver, and iDiver is going to give you access to all of your gear. So this gear ranges from your air tank, your wetsuit, your storage container, your harpoon, you'll have your melee weapon, and there's also a couple other things that they'll add on later as you progress in the story. And through upgrading these, you'll get increased damage, you'll get increased depth. So in the beginning, you're not able to dive down that deep, but as you play through the story, you make money, you're able to upgrade your suit to be able to withstand environments that are much deeper. You'll also increase the amount of oxygen that you have and the storage that you're able to carry. You are limited by weight and how much you're able to bring up in regards to resources that you find in the ocean, whether that be fish, plant life, or other varying creatures. So that's the one that I kind of focus on because oh my gosh, every single time I went into the ocean, I had to bring back full every single time. And you can actually go over full. It's a really enjoyable process. But you'll use your phone for all of these things. It's very straightforward. You can manage which quests that you're looking at, things like that. And now, honestly, probably one of the most important and a really big feature and mechanic in this game is this restaurant, Bancho Sushi. So this restaurant is your restaurant. You're helping run it. And in the beginning, you're going to be the one that's going to have to carry dishes to your guests. You're going to have to refill their green tea. You're going to have to refill their beers. And you also are able to set the menu. So you actually have full access to the ingredients that you've captured, and you're able to set what is on sale for that day. And through that, you're able to either choose dishes that will give you the most money, give you dishes that are going to give you a good reputation, and kind of whatever you want. And through this, you'll level up your restaurant, you'll gain more employees, you'll enhance your dishes, you'll be able to make dishes from boss materials, and you'll occasionally run into VIP guests and weekly events that are basically meant to either drive the story or make your restaurant more popular. And the whole point of this is there's this Instagram app called Cooksta. And basically through that, you get a reputation, you use that reputation to increase the capabilities of your restaurant. And that is going to be your main source of revenue. And it might seem like it's a little slow in the beginning, but I promise it really ramps up very quickly as you increase your quality of your dishes, you increase your staff, and you participate in these weekly events. Like, for example, there's an event that is related to tuna. So on this day, there's going to be a bunch of people coming in that are looking for tuna. And you want to make sure that you provide as many tuna dishes as possible. And then these guests that order this tuna are generally going to pay more. They might get a second dish, they might get a drink, and it's going to make you a lot more money than a normal day would. And then lastly, just to talk about the things that you'll kind of run into in the ocean that aren't related to the fish, there are a lot of different crates in the ocean that you'll have access to. One of them is going to give you different weapons, and that is how you actually discover new weapon types. You'll open this weapon box. It can give you a varying range of weapons or even harpoon types that are either going to increase your damage or give you access to new weapons. You'll find a second crate that gives you kind of like usable, consumable items that are only good for the current dive that you're in. These items are like underwater scooters. You'll get access to extra oxygen tanks that you can use to like refill your oxygen. You'll get lights, you'll get melee weapons. And then lastly, there is, it looks like a hot crock pot basically in the water. And if you open these, you'll get extra ingredients that are kind of like tertiary ingredients like soy sauce, salt, mayonnaise, stuff like that. You'll also run into a slew of items that you're able to pick up in the world. And these are generally related to kind of just like side progression. They're not worth a lot, but they help you do other quests that give you extra items and kind of like renown basically. And these are like seashells. You get sea stars. There are a really wide range of underwater sea plants like acar. You'll have seaweed, kelp. And then there's also a lot of varying ranges of kind of like not trash items, but they're items that are used to create things like the base weapons and the occasional upgrade for either your farm or the restaurant. And I know that probably sounded like a lot, but this game just literally has so much for you to interact with. It's not even funny. Moving on to the world is probably one of the most enjoyable and unique features of this game. The art style is very simple, but it's also extremely in-depth. All of the creatures in the ocean look fantastic, and they honestly look very similar to what they look like in the real world, which was very fun because I was able to pick out different species of fish and be like, oh, that's a blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so that was really fun to enjoy this environment that I was somewhat comfortable with already, but I also got to learn a lot about the species that were in that ocean. The generic background of the world looks absolutely fantastic. The backdrop that you don't get to interact with, it's basically just back there, gives you so much information about the things around you and every single depth that you're in. And the worlds that they've created underwater are absolutely brilliant. You'll run into so many things that are just, one, just very funny, and two, just very like pretty. They look fantastic, and they add so much depth to the game that you're not even interacting with. It just makes the whole like feel of the game so much more enjoyable. On top of that, the soundtrack for this game is absolutely fantastic. They have a lot of really good music for everywhere, and depending on which location you're in, you'll have different music, and they fit so well. They add so much to the game. It really gives the world that character, and it also gives each of these biomes and boss fights and locations the feeling that you should get when you're in these different environments. I know I briefly touched on the characters earlier, but I think probably the highlight of this game is the characters and the cutscenes that they gave them. There are so many memes in this game. It is not even funny. There are so many references in this game. I mean, there's a Skyrim reference in this game, guys. But these characters are so unique and so creative that they just give this world an even just a larger than life feeling. I've never felt so positive about side characters before. Generally, they're just like, you know, maybe you'll have like a favorite side character and you'll be like, oh, you know, Bob was really cool. But no, in this game, I have to say every single character that they kind of go a little bit above the top level on, it was so overwhelming how much I enjoyed the side characters that weren't even people that you might interact with every single day. Your head chef Boncho is a character in himself, and the guy that helps you with your weapons, Duff, he is easily the best character in this whole game. I know it's called Dave the Diver, but it should be Duff the Gun Creator. This man has the most hilarious character and just like character arc, and the minigame that you get to play as him is absolutely hilarious. Definitely go look that up in a video. It is well worth seeing if you're not going to buy the game. But these side characters added so much to the game that they in themselves are a reason why this is definitely a Game of the Year contender. In general, I have to say this was the most enjoyable game I've played the whole year, and honestly probably in the last like 3 years. It gave me a feeling like I was waking up being 13, playing Skyrim that just released on 360, or even going further back, like playing Jak and Daxter. I would get up, I would be extremely excited to play this game. Now I'm just, you know, I want to get home from work. I want to play Dave the Diver. It is so in depth in both the world and both what you're able to do and all of these fun little events that they give you that aren't even part of the main storyline. And then when you throw in this amazing main storyline that is extremely fun, very easy to follow, it wasn't something that was confusing. You might have had to guess a couple things, but the story itself was so fun, and it didn't rush you through it. You actually had to occasionally wait a couple days before you were able to actually progress in the story. And so this gave you the ability to do all the other things that you might have wanted to do, and you didn't have to worry about missing out on something. Like, I never felt like I was, oh, I really needed to do the story right now. You're able to do whatever you want when you play this game. There is nothing that is driving you. While the events and the VIPs do have dates that you have to get certain ingredients for, by that date, there's absolutely nothing that says you have to do those. I never failed any of them, so I'm not sure what happens if you don't get the ingredients that you need. I'm assuming you probably get like a negative review on your restaurant, but I don't really think it actually matters. So the fact that you're able to play in this amazing world without feeling forced to progress in the story, other than the fact that progressing in the story is going to give you access to a wider range of species of fish and just environment that you're able to explore when you go diving. It was just very fun. I have nothing bad to say about this game. This is easily a 10 of 10. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go and buy this. Even if this isn't your type of game, this is easily, I hope, one of the top 5 choices for Game of the Year. And unless something absolutely crazy comes out, I really do hope that this game gets the recognition that it deserves, because it is well worth just a measly $20 for such an amazing and in-depth game experience. So, as always, guys, I really appreciate all the support. If you guys are playing Dave the Diver, definitely let me know. Let me know what your favorite thing has been. I have to say, I have so many fun things that I want to tell you about, and I think I'm going to upload a lot of other videos in relation to Dave the Diver. Probably all the mini games, maybe my playthrough, stuff like that. So if you guys have things you want to tell me about the game, let me know down below. I would really appreciate it. And like and subscribe as always, and I hope to see you on the next one.